Hello, fellow human light beings. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the Thunder Wizard YouTube channel. Today I want to help you understand what the nature of the universe is like. And today we're going to be talking about how the emotion of love, how it feels in higher dimensions. And this idea for this video came about as a result of a comment that somebody left on the channel and a question, and I really appreciated it. And so I'm going to share that comment with you, and then we're going to get into what this is. Because everything I thought about the universe before I had my experience starting in June of 2022. Before that time, everything that I thought about the universe was almost completely wrong, especially the experiential aspect of it. And, you know, how you have to understand the concept of quantum frequencies. Now, you don't have to understand what those are, you just have to understand the concept of it. And you have to understand that the laws of reality as we know them completely, totally break down and change. And the experience of it is so completely different to what we expect. And in order to understand what's happening in other dimensions, we have to first understand that the experience of it is completely, totally bizarre to our three-dimensional reality. So we have to start, again, we have to start with assumptions. You can reject the assumption if you want, but to go down the experience I want to give you, you're going to have to at least, know what my assumptions are. So the assumption is that we are in fact locked into a limited experience of reality. And let me be clear about that. Reality is not a thought process. Reality is an experience. And I won't get too deeply off track on this, but a lot of modern, starting with modern Western magic. By modern, I mean in the past 2,000 years. So European Western magic is very intellectual. And you will hear people say thoughts are things. Your thoughts change things. Your thoughts create reality. Thoughts are nothing more than software within a program operating. They don't have any real power. Unless those thoughts happen to be connected to intentions and emotions and actions, then thoughts become a symptom of other things. But the thoughts by themselves accomplish nothing. This is why I get down on people who smoke weed thinking that they're accomplishing something. People will say, I smoke weed to meditate. But what ends up happening when you smoke weed, and I've talked about it, is that THC traps you in your intellect. But you think you're having a deep experience. But if you've ever been in the presence of somebody who's high on weed and they're like, hey man, I think like my thumbnail is like a universe, man. And there's like a dude in there who's looking at his thumbnail and there's a universe, and you're listening to them and it's nonsense. But they think they're coming up with something really wonderful. But that's all thoughts. Scientists, physicists, through mathematics are understanding some basic things about higher dimensions and how they work. But the one thing that scientists cannot experience or understand with mathematics is emotional reality. Emotions are what drive the universe, not thoughts, not mathematics. It is emotions that drive everything. And emotions can be very problematic in the third dimension because we have these lower vibrational responses. We have anger, we have fear, we have violence. We operate, we compete with each other. We can be completely devoid of real emotions because anger and fear, even though they have an emotional component to them, they're really nervous system biological reactions to the fear of dying. It all comes down to that. A person who steals your car, it's not just that they're mean and they're selfish and they're sociopathic because they don't take into account how it's going to affect you. They're actually afraid they're going to die. They think if they don't steal things from you that they won't be loved and taken care of. It's very regressed, immature, childish, even infantile. But it's an emotional experience. But when you get into higher dimensions, you get into the fifth dimension and above, the only emotions you're going to experience are going to be love, compassion, unity, peace, empathy. But the emotions themselves will become processing. This is what happens when I live stream on the weekends. Give me a second here. If you're still hearing me, give me a second. I'm just going to refresh the page, and if not, I'll have to start all over again. When this kind of thing happens, when the technology flips out, it means that what I'm saying is extremely important. Okay, so now it's connecting again, and now I'm back. All right. Okay, so let's keep going. So whatever I just said, if you heard it, needs to be repeated. That is that the emotion of love in higher dimensions, at the fifth dimension and above. I didn't mention the fourth dimension because the fourth dimension is time. We three-dimensional beings are already in the fourth dimension. So people are talking about you have to go to the fourth dimension, go to the fifth dimension. They don't understand. No, I'm not muted on my end. Might be muted on your end. People who talk about going to the fourth dimension and then the fifth dimension don't understand. Sorry, my computer's having a hard time. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to shut my computer down and come back. So stay here, keep refreshing your screen. I'll come back. Because when my computer's doing this, it usually means that, wait, is it calming down? We'll see if it calms down or not. Let me get it. I'm going to get it elevated a little bit so there's some air gets underneath there. All right, I'll keep going. Okay. So love in the fifth dimension, the fourth dimension is part of three dimensions. We live in three dimensions and we travel through the fourth dimension of time. So we don't go to the fourth dimension and then the fifth dimension because we're already in the fourth dimension. We're traveling through it. The fifth dimension and above. When you go from the higher from the third dimension, you go to the fifth dimension. In the fifth dimension, love is far, far, far more powerful than anything you can even begin to comprehend. Not only that, but the experience of it is very different. And this is important to understand. You cannot take your third dimensional experience and try and understand the fifth dimension. You have to experience the fifth dimension. And until you do, you won't know what it is. You won't even begin to know what it is. So I want to just go straight to the comment, and we'll take it from there. So this person left a comment, and I responded, and this isn't, I'm not bad-mouthing anybody, and this person was open to me. Sorry that the computer's bouncing around. I'm elevating it as I'm clicking buttons here. This person was open to my response to them, and it was very important. I became aware that, you know, I'm having these experiences, but if you don't understand the process of having them, then you can be very confused and in fact very frightened. So I need to give a little bit of background here. So bear in mind that the experience I have of higher dimensions is done because I do what I call interdimensional meditation. It's a very simple process. I teach you how to do it on this channel. You can go and go to the playlists and simply do the guided interdimensional meditations. Incredibly simple. Or you can just Google CE5 protocols, the letter C, the letter E, and the number 5 protocols. And don't overdo it. Just follow those protocols of leaving your body, going out into space, and asking if any higher dimensional beings want to communicate. That's it. It's very, very simple. Not everybody is as successful as others, and there's all kinds of reasons for that. But when you are successful, what will happen is a higher dimensional being will physically come into wherever you are. So if you're doing interdimensional meditation, perhaps, and let's say you're doing it in your bedroom and you're lying on your bed, and it's best in my experience to do it late afternoon, early evening, or at night. That's when you're going to have the most success with this, but it can sometimes work during the day as well. In any case, when you do it, what's going to happen is a higher dimensional being that, by the way, you have a karmic connection with. It won't be some random being. It'll be a being that knows you, and knows you from previous lifetimes and previous dimensions. You won't remember them, but they know who you are. And they may be of another species, but what's most important is that they're in a higher dimension. And when they come to visit you, if you close your eyes, there's a possibility with your eyes closed, you'll be able to see the being or beings, but you'll definitely sense something. But you will sense more than just a presence. You will feel, in many cases, and it's different all the time, but if we're talking about a powerful being that really wants your attention, you're going to feel something very strange, and it won't be like anything you've ever felt before. If it's a very powerful experience, you may feel as though you can't breathe. You may feel like there's a pressure on your chest, but if you relax, you realize you can breathe. The pressure, the feeling of pressure on your chest is actually your soul, which is a portal, and you are actually physically connecting to a higher dimensional vibration. And that goes along with high levels of electromagnetic energy. It's not electricity, it's not magnetism, it's electromagnetism, but it's not anything that you've ever experienced in the third dimension. It's fifth dimensional energy. So you have to be aware of that. It is a bizarre, very strange experience. Your human mind will not understand what is going on. And this is, if you have fear, this is where the fear comes from. It's just, I don't understand what's happening. Now, this person, they had this experience, if I'm reading them right, because they did mushrooms. Now, as you know, I just got through talking smack about weed and saying, weed is a waste of time. And it is. If you think you're having a spiritual experience on weed, I guarantee you you're not. You're completely stuck in your head, and you're getting high on your own narcissism and the thoughts in your brain. Nothing spiritual is happening, which is why it's so pleasant, by the way. But when people do mushrooms, when they do ayahuasca, when they do straight DMT, they have these kinds of experiences, which is why afterwards people go, it's so strange and so bizarre, and they attribute it to being high on drugs. That's not what's happening. Now, I do not recommend, I can't stress this enough, I do not recommend doing mushrooms, DMT, or ayahuasca unless that is something you have chosen to do and you've really thought it through. And the reason for that is when you force the experience by forcefully ingesting DMT, which is what's happening, you break through to other dimensions, but you're not doing it in a manner that is cooperative with your nervous system and with your brain. The other thing is there's no shortage of people out there that, do DMT all the time, that go on DMT trips all the time. And a good number of them will tell you that it's not real, that their brain is making it up. But here's the facts of DMT. Now, what I'm saying to you is that when a higher dimensional being comes into your physical space, your brain will naturally release DMT. Your brain releases DMT all the time. It is something that we live with, and it has a lot to do with mental health and happiness and creativity and all kinds of things. But it happens on such low levels that we don't lose our three-dimensional connection. But when you are born and when you die, your brain releases massive amounts of DMT. And the reason for that, I believe, is because DMT creates a portal to other dimensions. So when a child is born, massive amounts of DMT are going through the infant's brain because their soul is completely coming into the third dimension, and they need that portal to come in here because this is not a natural place for the soul to be. The third dimension is far too limited for a highly, infinite spiritual being, which is your soul. And when you die, massive amounts of DMT are released in the brain, and that is because your soul is leaving, and so it needs a portal to leave. So when you interact with anything from a higher dimension on a level that you can consciously experience, DMT has to be present. This is why people feel, lots of Kundalini energy, lots of Chi energy, because DMT is connected to Kundalini and Chi, which is why when you do the 90-day challenge, what ends up happening? You end up getting connected to Chi energy and other dimensions because what? It also releases DMT in the brain, but it does so naturally. The drawback of doing it unnaturally or artificially, meaning you ingest it, is that the brain is continuously monitoring DMT and the production of it. And when you get a massive amount of influx, and this is true with testosterone, with hormones, anything, massive amounts of DMT externally, artificially introduced into your system, your brain shuts off production of DMT because it says there's way too much, shut off production. That is damaging to you. That means that every time you want to experience it, you're going to have to ingest the DMT if you're doing it on a regular basis. So it creates a tolerance. Your body becomes tolerant, and then you have to have more each time to have an experience. So the benefit of doing the Qigong practices, the 90-day challenge, the 923, the Maoshan, the Awakening the Immortals, is that you're actually ramping up the production of DMT in your brain naturally. And so your brain ends up being able to handle and process these experiences. But when people take drugs, they aren't able to process it very well. Unless they really, really, really meditate ahead of time, and they do it with a shaman and all of that. And then it should only be done a few times in your lifetime. If you're doing it more than that, then you're abusing it and you're wasting the experience, and it's unnecessary because you can do it without all that. Anyway, so this person, from what I'm getting, has taken some mushrooms. So let me read their experience. So now you know the difference between having a DMT altered dimensional experience in your conscious mind, because DMT is naturally being released in your brain, as opposed to the artificial consumption of it, which smashes you through the dimensional barriers, and then you have an experience. And then when you come back in because you artificially, violently forced your brain into it, then you're stuck with this, yeah, but I was high on drugs, man. And, I mean, it's not real, but it was an intense trip. And then you're not able to process it. There's a bunch of other things that go on, because when you do DMT, lots of times the entities on the other side will be surprised, and they'll say, what the hell are you doing here? Or they'll be very surprised. They'll be very happy to see you, which means that they weren't expecting you, which means they weren't connected to the process. When you do it naturally, they are connected to it. Everybody knows what's going on, including you. All right, so let me get to the comment. So this person is responding to my video, Truth About Draconian Aliens, Super Soldiers, Alien Human Hybrids. This person says, I had a very powerful spiritual experience where I saw tall insectoid-like alien doctors performing some type of astral surgery on me. They were reaching into my chakras. The insectoid doctors themselves felt totally emotionally neutral. However, I kept getting these intense, warm, fuzzy love waves. Some small part of me felt like this was like how some insects will inject endorphin-releasing drugs into their victims to subdue them. So I pulled away from them. I never felt anything bad from them. In fact, they were 100% neutral and unemotional, which made the love waves a bit puzzling, since those felt like something separate. Also, they never communicated anything to me. They did not stop me from withdrawing or get angry or anything, but they did seem to try hard with the love waves to keep me still. So, let me unpack that for you. What we're seeing here is somebody who took mushrooms. I think he says later that he was taking mushrooms. He had no idea what he was going to experience. He had no conscious intention. He didn't know what he was doing, why he was doing it. He just was taking mushrooms probably to get some kind of an effect. So what ends up happening is he goes through a portal, because the DMT that's released from the mushrooms opens up a portal. Now, we live within a world that's like an onion. And in that onion, there are layers and layers and layers of different dimensions. And each one of those dimensions is an entire multiverse. And in each one of these multiverses, there are other beings there. Now, the beings in the higher dimensions can see into our dimension, but you cannot see into their dimension unless you go through some kind of a portal. So, when you do interdimensional meditation, when you do the CE5 protocols, which are very necessary, then what ends up happening is that you are consciously aware that you are choosing to go into another dimension. And so you know when you encounter these beings, it won't be such a shock to you. It will be different and strange and all of that, but you won't be shocked by it. You won't be confused by what's happening. You will understand that when a higher dimensional being communicates to you and it's different than what you experience, you know immediately you're experiencing higher dimensional emotions or communications. So that's what's missing here. This guy didn't, I'm assuming it's a guy. This person didn't know that. This person didn't know because they had no conscious intention of what they were doing, why they were doing it, and they had no awareness of what was happening. So, but the way this is described is important, and I want to talk about it because when you experience it, you'll know what's happening. When you do the interdimensional meditation, you'll know what's happening. So this person makes the assumption that these insectoid beings, which, by the way, I completely believe that's possible, because the being that first initiated me into this was a mantis being, very powerful mantis being. In fact, I had the most powerful experience with, well, I can't say that, one of the most powerful experiences with him. So when I read that, I'm like, yeah, I've experienced that. Now, if you don't know that exists, and you're taking mushrooms and you go and some insectoid doctors are doing these energetic, energy empowerments, and they're sending you these waves of love, I mean, you have no frame of reference to know what the hell any of that means. If, however, you're doing interdimensional meditation and you're conscious, you're not getting zonked out and part of your brain is getting turned off because you're on drugs, and then DMT is coming in there, you're not going to have any clue what the hell's going on, what to make of it. But what he's describing with these waves of love, which is a really good way of describing it, is what happens when higher dimensional thoughts and emotions are transmitted to a three-dimensional being. Because let's stop for a moment. How do you know that somebody loves you? If you're in the room with somebody and you get the awareness that they love you, what are the things that tell you that? You might maybe feel some kind of love in the room, but it won't be necessarily a strong physical experience or anything like that. You'll maybe just kind of feel safe, and you might feel loving, but more than likely what's going on is you're experiencing your own love, and the other person is giving you all kinds of physical cues. They're smiling at you, their body language. We're able to read very minute body language among our own species, and we know whether or not they're having, what their emotions are. I hear on a daily basis there are magpies that come to fly onto my balcony and want me to feed them. And I know that they like me, and sometimes they send me gifts like worms or bugs, because they're like, you gave me some food, I'm going to give you some, and they're very very sweet. Now, if I look at them, I can't tell what they're feeling. They make little noises, so they sound like little baby birds. They're obviously asking me to give them some food. They're showing they're giving me dominance. They're treating me like a dominant adult, and they're the child. So I can put two and two together, but if I look at the face of the bird, I can't tell what they're thinking. There's just this neutral thing. Birds can't smile. They can't do anything to show me what they're feeling. In fact, if you don't trust the bird, you don't know if the bird's about to bite you or if the bird is wanting to land on your shoulder. You can't tell by looking at them. So this guy's not able to tell when he's looking at these insectoid beings. He can't tell what their emotions are because they're not human. On top of that, humans have to verbally or physically, they have to physically touch you, they smile, they lift their eyebrows, they do all kinds of things to give you indications that they've got loving feelings, or they'll speak to you. They'll even say, I love you. We respond to all of those three-dimensional cues. So he's not getting any of those. So he says that they're neutral. They're obviously not neutral. Obviously. Because he feels that these waves of love, he even describes them from his perspective. He says, it felt like this was like how some insects will inject endorphin-releasing drugs into their victims to subdue them. Now, there's so much assumption behind that. Because they're not human, because he's high on mushrooms, because he's in another dimension, and because they are not humans, he automatically assumes the worst. He automatically assumes he's being attacked by giant insects who are injecting him with endorphins so that they can feast on him. Now, he doesn't say that, but that's obviously his response to it. And why wouldn't that be his response? He didn't do, in this case, he didn't do interdimensional meditation with the conscious decision to go and experience higher dimensions. He just, he munched on some mushrooms, maybe to have a trip, maybe not, but he didn't know what was going to happen. And then when the portal was opened, not because he's consciously choosing to meditate and open a portal, the portal is opened, he's thrust through it. These insectoid beings, I don't know if they were mantis beings or whatever they were, they're like, oh my God, it's one of our family. It's a guy from the third dimension. I remember that guy. Wow, he needs some love. He needs some surgery. Come on, guys, let's put some love into this guy and fix his chakras. Now, if I had put a sign over a building and I said, insectoid doctors magically heal your chakras with love, and you paid me $100 and came in and sat down, and these things came in and started putting energy into you in waves of love, you wouldn't be freaking out. You'd be like, yeah, no, I paid for that. I knew what I was coming to do. You eat a few mushrooms, you have no idea what you're heading into. No clue. So that experience of the waves of love coming through him is what I experience almost every time I do interdimensional meditation. I'm experiencing it right now as I'm talking to you. Because whenever I make videos, most of the time that dimension gets very happy and wants to be a part of it, especially when I start saying things that help you understand more about them. I can feel those waves of love. Now, those waves of love can be extremely intense. They also feel very concentrated. So the waves of love themselves feel like, that's a great word, because that's what happens. They're like waves coming through you. Well, what also has waves? Frequencies. Frequencies have waves, energy waves. You can tell the frequency of something by the waves, small, big, high frequency, low frequency. So everything is a wave. The love that you have within you is a wave, but you're so used to it, you don't experience it as this wave coming through you, because the higher dimensional love that he was experiencing was coming from the fifth dimension, and it was coming into a third dimensional body and mind. So when you experience it, it's going to feel like this foreign energy coming at you. The confusing part is because it's so blissful. It's unbelievably blissful. So it causes confusion. This happens when you know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing, it's going to be just this trippy thing. You're going to come out of it and not know what the hell happened. I was just really high. That's the kind of high that's the kind of thing that happens when you eat mushrooms. You have these kinds of experiences, man. Right? So that is an understandable, he's describing exactly the kinds of things that have happened to me. Now, the other thing I'm seeing here is that this is his first experience. And those beings are aware. Now, how they know it, whether they can see it in his energy field, whether, psychically, because they're on a higher dimension, they can instantly get an idea of who you are. By the way, we have to understand how it is. This would be the same if you were in a higher dimension. If you were to shift to the fifth dimension, you would be able to look at any third dimensional being. You'd know their past, their present, their future. You would be able to know what they're thinking, what they're feeling. You would be able to know what's going on in their unconscious mind. You would see them 100% for who they were, and you would see them more deeply and more accurately than they see themselves. So he appears in the fifth dimension, and these beings go, wow, let's help this guy out. And they already know what he needs. They can look at his aura, they can look at his body, they can look at his soul, they can see his karma, they can see his past, his present, his future. And that's just simply because they're in the fifth dimension. Every being can do that. And so they don't need to understand anything. They just go straight into doing what he calls the surgery. And I've had that experience, and this happens usually the first time, assuming that it's part of your karma and there's something in your destiny associated with it. Beings will immediately help to empower you to follow that. That may not be your destiny. I don't know what mine is, but from the very beginning, the experiences were so unbelievably intense. If you remember, go back to those first videos, a year and a half ago, I was losing my mind. I was very concerned about my mental health. Even though I was going through it, it was, I was having a very hard time processing all of it. And that's somebody who knew what he was doing. I knew why I was doing it and what I was doing. You just eat some mushrooms or smoke some DMT, you have no idea what you're heading into. No clue. So that isn't what happens now, a year and a half later. My interdimensional meditations have shifted into all kinds of different things, but I remember the intensity of the love. I'll share with you one of probably the earliest experience that really blew my mind. I talked about the first experience where I felt a lot of energy in the room. I felt a being touching my crown chakra, but it wasn't anything beyond that. Now, he kick-started something, he opened up something, and that was just the beginning. He even let me know that this was the beginning of a transformational experience, a shamanic initiation. He made that very clear. So what ended up happening next is that over the next few days, my unconscious mind was really struggling with the experience, being exposed to that higher dimensional energy, but all the things you see in that video, the video that's called How I Became an Extraterrestrial, I was so freaked out at the reality that there are beings that are 7-foot tall mantis beings from other planets that can beam into my home, touch me on the head, and communicate, take over my radio. It was real. It was no longer just some spiritual thing. When we talk about spirit guides and angels, and the truth is we're not really taking it all that seriously. We enjoy the possibility. We certainly feel like we're connected. But if somebody says, no, that's just your brain responding to the spiritual experience, you'd be like, yeah, that might be true, but it felt maybe it really is an angel. We don't know. When something like that happens, you can't spiritualize it. It's now a fact, a physical fact, and my third dimensional brain was just breaking. It couldn't tolerate it. So much so that my physical body, I started getting what I found out later was called frozen shoulder. And it was a very painful experience. And it was directly in response to my unconscious mind being very resistant and unable to process this very bizarre paranormal event. So I was in a lot of pain. And I was very frightened, but I was in a lot of physical pain. And so against my better judgment, I didn't know what else to do. I was so desperate to heal the pain that I was feeling physically, I did more interdimensional meditation. And this time I did it lying down in bed, and I went up and I said, I'm in pain. I'm in huge amounts of pain. I'm frightened. I need healing. Can you come and heal me? Now, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was just desperate. And what ended up happening is in one case, I did the meditation, I went up and I asked, and I stayed probably 5 or 10 minutes waiting for something to happen. Nothing happened, so I went, okay, so nothing's going to happen. And I got up and I went and I sat down at my computer and I started playing a video, and it turned out to be a video of Sadhguru up in the Himalayas, and he's doing something and talking about there's alien spirits here or something like that. And he ended up talking, right when he said something along the lines of, energy going into their body, I felt this jolt go into my heart center of the most intense love I've ever experienced. And it was a feeling of, it was a very blissful, it felt like I had just taken some huge hit of something. And it just put me in this totally different mindset. And it was so intense and so blissful. And I remember thinking, did that just happen? Boom, another one. Now, in my mind, what I thought had happened is that there was a being standing behind me, pointing his finger at my chest. I don't know if that's but that's the only way that I could process it, because the thought of this happening on another dimension and somebody astrally send me, I do believe that there were beings physically there with me, because that's usually when it's the most intense. In the beginning, they have to sort of open you up. But that's what it felt like. It felt like somebody had just taken their finger and jolted me in the heart center with the most intense blissful love I've ever experienced. And that happened more and more and more, until it got to the point where now what happens is, and what started happening is, if I go into meditation and I start communicating with a higher dimensional being, there will be these, as he calls it, these waves of love. They'll literally feel like waves, and they'll feel like, happens to me so much I've gotten used to it. And I know that if I'm, not meditating, I'm, on my computer or, watching Netflix or something, and I start getting these waves hitting me, I know that there's a higher dimensional being that's calling me, saying, let's, come talk to us. Sometimes I can be fully, completely eyes wide open conscious, and I can get downloads and telepathic messages, and combined with the messages will be those waves. So the point I'm trying to make is that is their constant normal reality. That's just how they are all the time. And this is why people, somebody came on the channel, it turned out to be some lunatic troll who I had to block, but somebody came on the channel and left a comment, about it's a fact that these evil reptilians are taking people hostage and trafficking in bodies. And I said, well, how do you know this fact? Give some kind of, give me the source material for this. Have you personally experienced this? And of course the person, wouldn't own up to any of it, just wanted to, like a crazy person, blather on about this is a fact and that's a fact. Well, this is why I say I know for a fact that these beings are incapable of having any negative feelings. They can feel sadness, they can have concern, they have tremendous concern for us. They're extremely concerned and worried, but they don't get into the same kinds of wavelengths we do. They, it's possible to still be detached and have love and compassion and have concern for somebody. But I know how they live, because every time they communicate with me, I'm pulled up to that level and I feel it. Now, the other thing that is important to know, and I keep saying this, is that it is my belief, based on my experience, that a being who lives in the fifth dimension has access to all other higher beings above them, the way that I do now. I didn't have it before, that mantis being touched me on the head. I didn't have that before. I couldn't have done it no matter how hard I tried. But now I can just close my eyes and I can go to the level of the deities and communicate with them. I can go to the level of the higher dimensional light beings. I can go to the level of the ETs. I can go to the level of there are deities above deities. I had another experience just the other day. I went one level above these guys. I've told you about these guys. This is the father-mother deity. I've communicated with them. I've felt their power. Now, I'm not attached to this, but I had an experience where I went a level above them to another, realm of deities and a whole. I mean, it turns into this. You get beyond our dimension, and then you get beyond our multiverse. A whole different multiverse with a whole other ladder of dimensions and a whole other ladder of beings. And I imagine there's a being overseeing all of that. I mean, it just never ends. It's just this ladder of consciousness. And these beings have access to that. It's just part of their reality. And until you've experienced it, you can't know that. Which is why it's so easy to manipulate people with the fear religions. Why that guy who came on and commented on it's a fact that Draco reptilians are taking humans and trafficking in bodies, because in his third dimensional experience, that's the reality he knows, because that is the truth. There are humans doing that. There are humans doing human trafficking, human slave trade, abuse of all kinds in every possible way you can imagine, and ways even more cruel than you can imagine. That is all going on in the third dimension. But if that's all you know, then when somebody comes along and says, oh yeah, no, there's a God, and then there's this devil. He's more powerful than you, and he wants to eat your soul and all that. I mean, you buy into that. Oh yes, there are beings, false beings of light out there who want to keep you trapped and suck the life out of your soul. There's no reason you won't believe that, because it makes perfect sense, because that's your exact experience in the third dimension. So if you want to experience what love really is like, you can only do that in a higher dimensional state. And those of us who have been able to do this, which now is the whole world, I'm certain that what I got through experiencing, that is not something that humans were able to do 100 years ago, 50 years ago. I just don't think it was possible. You had to do things like take mushrooms and do ayahuasca in order to even come close to experiencing it, because this third dimensional barrier just wasn't something we were allowed to go beyond. But since this three-dimensional reality has been slated for destruction, the rules are off. And these higher dimensional beings, when you call them, will come, and they will break through the third dimensional barrier to the degree that you are willing and able to experiencing it without completely losing your mind. And if you're like me, they'll go ahead and take you all the way to the edge and keep pushing you so that you can integrate and become larger and larger and larger. I'm not the only person that's experiencing this. There's numerous people who are my apprentices who are doing this, and many of you who I don't know who are doing this. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. You don't know, where your third dimensional ends and the fifth dimensional begins. You don't know, you're living two realities in meditation. You're living in the fifth dimension. I live in the fifth dimension, and I'm creating an entire world there. And I've created a whole temple complex where I can meditate and communicate and teach. And I go off and I'm teaching other beings in other dimensions, and I'm teaching and learning, and all that stuff is happening in my dimensions. And then I'm here in my third dimension, living, having this channel, going and surfing, buying groceries, paying rent, doing the same things you are. And it takes it takes the willingness to evolve. By the way, the only thing that is allowing me to stay sane while I'm doing this is I'm doing the 12 steps to 5D on a daily basis. I am constantly examining my unconscious attachments, my fears. I'm doing everything in my power to face everything within me that is holding me back, and being willing to go through the pain and the fear and all of the emotions and evolving beyond it. That's why I say, if you're not doing work you're gonna go backwards. And I'm watching people who are refusing to do the work, and they are absolutely emotionally and physically miserable. So if you want to avoid all that, 12 steps to 5D is my experience, I think it's the best way to do that. But whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to therapy, you got a meditative practice, you've got a guru, you've got a group of people, you're doing something where you're constantly being willing to look at and analyzing what's going on inside of you. So I just wanted to, give that response. He and I went back and forth a little bit, and I gave him some of my thoughts and my suggestions, and what he could do. But I encourage you to ask to have that experience. The experience of feeling these higher dimensional waves of love. Because when we get to the fifth dimension, that's going to be our baseline. That's going to be reality. We're going to be living in a very blissful state. And I've been taken to that state in my physical conscious presence a couple of times. Now, I've gone there many times in my astral body, but that's not exactly the same. But I've been taken there a couple times in my physical body, walking around, in 3D, and I've been shifted up to that level. And I can tell you that it's absolutely blissful. It is challenging and frightening to the third dimensional brain for all the reasons that I've elucidated, ad nauseum. But it's just nothing short of bliss. But it's not like anything we have in the third dimension. Drugs are the closest thing. This is why people do drugs, by the way. This is why people drink. It's why they do weed, why they put heroin in their neck, they do crack, they do cocaine. They're doing all of these things because those chemicals sometimes kind of mimic the fifth dimensional experience of bliss. So instead of wasting your time on that nonsense, you can stay completely sober and healthy, and you can experience DMT at tremendous levels, and you can experience these, as this person calls, these waves of, I'm going to call it higher dimensional love. You can experience that in your conscious mind, and it will shift you and expand you. And if you do it with the warrior spirit, knowing that this third dimensional reality is going bye-bye, and you do that knowing that it's going to challenge your perception of reality and knowing that it might create fear in you. And if you do it willingly, consciously, going against your fear of, the third dimensional fear is that you think it's going to kill you. It's going to take your world away. It is going to take your world away. If you're willing to die to your attachments, and you do that like a warrior, these beings will honor that, and they will continue to give you experiences that will expand you beyond where you are. So I recommend everybody go do the guided interdimensional meditations that I have on the channel. I can't overestimate this. I strongly encourage you to do the energy practices, because the energy practices strengthen your nervous system, strengthen your energy meridians, your chakras, all of that that's within you, your organs, and allows your physical body to handle more and more high frequency energy. That's what the point of all those energies, of those practices, have always been. So, and it's probably why I've had experiences to the level I have, because I've spent my whole adult life doing these practices, getting my nervous system, my chakras, my meridians prepared for the higher dimensional energy. If you want that, you can go do the free practices on the channel, like Awakening the Immortals. And then if you're really serious, then you can go here to thunderwizard.com, to the website, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, and just follow the videos and do what I do. Do that in combination with meditation, interdimensional meditation. You can also go here to 923.thunderwizard.com. It has the most powerful moving energy practices I believe that has ever been downloaded. The five element Maoshan practices. You can do those as well as get all of my teachings for virtually nothing. You save something like $3,500. My books, I talk about it. You can get my books at michaelwilliamdenny.com. Interdimensional Revolution, Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, and The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. You know, I have to tell you, I'm really quite shocked at how few people buy books. I'm shocked at it. When I see how many people watch the videos, and the videos get into the thousands of views, and I'll see in 1 month maybe 2 or 3 of these books have sold. It's quite shocking to me. And I don't understand how so many of you, and I'm not saying this out of anger, I honestly don't get it. How so many of you can be so committed and addicted to this channel. You watch, every time I upload a video, you watch the channel, but you don't buy the books. You don't do the practices. I honestly don't get that. I don't see how it benefits you, because you're only going to get the benefit if you do the work. You're not going to understand a lot of what I say unless you do the research. Read the books. Watch the videos. You know, use my channel and the information that I give to you, and don't just be satisfied with just the free stuff if you want more. Don't, you know, one thing that, you know, I mean, I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I'm definitely a wealthy person if we talk about quality of life, but I'm not rich. But I make sure I buy every single surfboard I want. I make sure that I live exactly where I want to live. I spend whatever money I need to spend to have everything that I want. And sometimes I end up broke. But then the next month comes along and I get everything I need. And the reason I do that is because I've come to find out, as I've written about in my book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment, is that the only thing that matters is giving yourself happiness and fulfillment. And if and when you're on a deathbed, if you're sitting on your deathbed, I guarantee you the only thing you're going to be asking yourself, the last gasps of breath that you take, you will be asking yourself, did I give myself everything that I wanted? And if the answer is no, you will die with regret. And that regret will force you to choose to come back and live through the same things over and over again. You don't want to be reincarnated? Don't be chintzy with your resources. Give your resources to get the things that you want. All right, that's it. I'm done preaching here. What just happened? My studio, why did you do that? I'm happy to take a look and see if there are any questions. If I like your question, I will respond to it. If I don't respond to it, don't get your feelings hurt. If I respond to your question in a way that you don't like, don't get your feelings hurt. I love you so much, I'll tell you the truth even if you don't like it. I don't need you to like me. I want you to be happy. So what else? Okay, so I see a question here. A person asks, I would love to know how to discern what beings are good for you and not. You have an assumption. Welcome to the channel. I strongly urge you to watch more videos on my channel so you can know about this. Your assumption is that there is such a thing as good and bad beings. And in higher dimensions, there are no bad beings. This is your projection of your third dimensional reality. It also assumes that you won't know. Now, this is true in our human life. When we interact with other humans, we don't know right off the bat if we can encounter a good or a bad spirit. Again, this is answered through experience. If you experience it, you won't have any questions. But if your fear stops you, you'll never know. Again, I'm seeing, this freaking internet is so crappy sometimes. All right, so I don't know if I'm breaking up or not. But so how to discern? How do you know when you look outside? Before you step out, do you go, I don't know if I can discern whether or not the weather is good? You'll know. If it's cold, you put on a jacket. If it's warm, you put on some sunscreen. You wear a pair of shorts. Your assumption is you're not going to know. And that is an assumption coming from fear. So I can tell you, if you follow my directions that I give you on how to do interdimensional meditation, you never have to worry about discerning good from bad, because you're going to a place where there are no bad entities. Bad entities are in the third dimension and below. What else? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, okay, so now I know why. This person says, I've experienced surgery during self-Reiki. So self-Reiki means you're doing it to yourself. So here's the problem. There is a problem. We have this thing called the unconscious mind, and we do have delusions. So, you having a bad dream, or you having a bad trip, or you doing self-initiated, because that's the thing, you're already wrapped up in your narcissism because you're doing self-initiated, and this is why you need teachers. This is why you need other people. Delving into spirituality on your own without any experience and without other people, you're gonna bump into your own delusions. There's no shortage of people that have interacted with me who claim to be doing the interdimensional meditation. Maybe they are, and they come to me, and they've come to me and said that my higher self told them, or God told them, or other beings told them, to me, you need to do this, and if you don't do that, and just crazy, lunatic, really destructive stuff. And what's happening is they're operating from their own delusion, and people can't tell. So that's what I'm hearing. If you're doing self-Reiki and you experienced a lot of weird things and it wasn't good for you, how do you know it wasn't good for you? It wasn't good for you because you were afraid? It wasn't good for you because it brought up feelings you didn't like? That doesn't mean it's not good for you. When somebody works with me and I challenge them on their unconscious self-delusions and their blocks, they don't like what I say. It doesn't feel good. Doesn't mean that it isn't good for them. So I don't know that you didn't run into your own resistance to your own evolution. I don't know that. But you're not qualified. If you're doing your own self-Reiki, you're not qualified to, because if you're opening up energies, these higher dimensional energies are going to push you to go beyond your blocks. And it's going to make you afraid, and it's going to bring up resistance. And with me, I talked about in the beginning, I had physical pain. The pain wasn't because ETs had harmed me. It was because my unconscious resistance was so strong, I was fighting it, and I caused myself damage. So I can tell. I could tell by the first question, how do I discern good from bad? I could tell from that. There's unresolved fear. You're isolated. You're not, all kinds of things. I recommend you find a teacher and work with a teacher. By the way, there are still slots available for people if you want to become an apprentice. All you have to do is go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe at the apprenticeship level, and you can work with me anywhere from 1 day a month to 4 days a month. Most people, and I'm no different, most people will not evolve if they're trying to do this thing on their own. Do you know what apparatus and extraction process in heart chakra means? I don't, and it sounds like nonsense to me. Maybe it isn't, but I don't know, and I don't care. I could be wrong, but it sounds like, chakra removal, which is a complete nonsensical thing, but I could be wrong. Question. TT says, do Vedic animal sacrifices please 5D ETs? So TT, how long have you been on the channel? And how many times have you heard me say, don't ask me about things I don't teach? Don't ask me about other teachers. You know, it is offensive to me. You don't have to take this personally, but it is offensive to me when people ask questions that are completely unrelated to what I'm talking about. It tells me that you're not paying attention, you're not in class with me listening to what I'm talking about. You're coming with your own personal thing and wanting to unload it on, and you know, I don't talk about things I don't teach. I've never done an animal sacrifice and I never will. I have no interest in it. You want to learn about animal sacrifices? Go talk to somebody who does it. Don't waste our time with it. This is why I don't take questions, because people tend to ask questions out of their ego, and it bugs the crap out of me. Anyway, TT, I love you. I'm glad you're here. Please follow that. Don't ask me questions I don't teach, and don't veer off of the subject, please. I'm talking about specific things. Okay, what else? All right, people with opinions, we all have them. Okay, the answer to your question, Erdwick, is no. I haven't experienced that. Chanel says, I heard I got entities. I don't know what that means. You know, again, if you're on my channel, it's good to communicate clearly. I assume what you're saying is that you heard from somebody else or in meditation that entities entered you. So go onto my channel and look for all the videos about exorcisms. See, that I could feel that in your first question. How do I know to discern good from bad? Let me tell you how people become possessed, or how they get spirit attachments. When you have unconscious, unresolved trauma from childhood that you aren't looking at, that unresolved trauma will cause so much pain, you will seek to deny it, you will seek to avoid it, you will seek to push it down. A lot of people use spirituality not in the way it's meant to be, and I'm sensing this from you. They use spirituality, especially New Agey spirituality, in order to escape uncomfortable feelings. You hear this from the love and light crowd. Remember that? People, everything is love and light, and I don't go to anything negative. These are the same people that smoke weed all day and then talk about being in love all the time, and then they blow up at you. On people with, you know, codependence, unresolved codependence, who I'm just here to help everybody and I'm a super empath, and then one day they just explode all over you and tell you all the ways that you're not doing what they want. These are people who are running away from their pain, and it's understandable. But if you use spirituality to avoid your pain, it has the same impact as if you use drugs, if you use sex, if you use violence, if you use anything, overthinking, to avoid your feelings. Then what ends up happening is you send an energetic message to the lower vibrational realms saying, I want help, I need to escape my pain. Demons show up. Lower dimensional beings who feed off of your negative energy show up, and they attach themselves to you, or they possess you. People who have been possessed, I know because I was an exorcist, people who are possessed are usually extremely physically, mentally, and or sexually abused. And they are trying so hard to not relive those experiences and work through that pain that they prefer to be abused. This is why people with victim mentalities are constantly worried about things, complaining about things, and talking about how horrible things are, because by being distracted with all that drama, they're not looking at their pain. And you feel bad for people who are possessed until you realize they prefer the abuse of spiritual entities over the pain of going through the mourning, the sadness of knowing that your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, somebody in your life was abusive to you. You didn't get what you want, your boyfriend broke up with you. That is more painful than being attacked by an entity So if you've got spirit problems, it means that you need to go talk to a therapist. It means you need to go to a 12-step group, probably Codependence Anonymous or Al-Anon or something like that. So don't spiritualize that. You got entities, it's because you're not looking at yourself. You can't look at yourself. I understand that. Most people can't. That's why you don't do it alone. Go get some help. Start with the 12 steps to 5D that I have on my channel. Everybody listening to me, and I know you, I don't know who you are. I'm not going to say your name. I don't know what you're about, but I already know that you qualify for a 12-step. You say yes from somebody else, as though somebody else has the power to give you negative entities. It doesn't work like that. Even if, you know, somebody is walking around and they've got negative entities attached and somehow you got one, it can't come onto you unless you energetically are asking for it. Just like people who end up in abusive relationships. Why do I end up with abusive men all the time? Because you unconsciously seek it out so that you can replay your childhood trauma and distract yourself from the pain you haven't looked at within yourself. It's very simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple. But I don't know you, but I already know that you qualify for either Codependence Anonymous or Al-Anon or ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Family. I already know that about you, and you haven't told me anything about yourself, because nobody, you know, almost brags about being attacked by negative entities unless you've already got this within you. So you want to be free from demons? Great. Start working the 12 steps. I guarantee you the demons will go away. What else? You say, yes, this person removed this and helped heal the core issue. Well, that's good. All they did, I used to be an exorcist. By the way, you're never going to be able to bullshit me about this stuff. I used to be an exorcist. And I know what it's like to be able to cast demons out of people. But I always told them. This is why I stopped doing exorcisms. So I cast the demons out of them. Sometimes they'd flop around, they'd puke, their face would change, heads would spin around, they'd float through the air, all the kind of stuff you see in movies. Things like that would happen. And I would cast the demons out, and then I would tell them, you have to go, if they're religious, go talk to your pastor, go talk to your priest, go to a therapist. You have to look at your life, and you have to look at what's happening. If you don't, the demon will come back. And they would say yes, or they would say no. And almost every time the demon would come back, and I just went, you know, I'm wasting my time with these people. Here I am releasing the demons and they're not doing anything. It's because I wasn't fixing anybody. The only person that can cure you of any demon attachment or spiritual attachment is you. And you have to go and get the appropriate help. And it's psychological, it's not spiritual. And so don't try and BS me with it. Go get yourself a therapist. Go work the 12 steps. Go choose to look at your unresolved emotional issues, and that other stuff will disappear. What else? Nothing else? Okay, I guess we're done. So thank you guys for showing up. I love you all. Again, as always, if I've done or said anything that has hurt or offended anybody, know that my only intention is your healing, your happiness, your empowerment, and I only have, you know, very limited amount of time, so I have to tell you the core truth, and it's up to you to do something about it. If you don't follow my directions, I'm now karma free from whatever happens. If you follow my directions, every single person who follows my directions consistently and to the letter, their lives blossom. They get healthier, happier, more prosperous. And they may have challenging emotions that come out. People who don't follow my instructions, I can't speak for them. That's it, my friend. That's it. I wish you all the best. Good for you, Pure Life Science. Keep it up. Keep doing it. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't stop. Don't stop. That's it. I love you all. I will see you guys all very soon. Take advantage of the 90-day challenge at thunderwizard.com. Take advantage of the free stuff. Most of the stuff I give away is free, but the 90-day challenge, 923thunderwizard.com, that's the stuff that keeps my lights on if you want me to stay here. If you subscribe, you will get the most powerful spiritual teachings I believe on the planet. And also you'll help me to continue to do these videos and do this work for you. That's it. I love you all. I'll see you guys very soon. Please take very good care of yourselves. If I don't get beamed up to the Starship Enterprise, or if the Flash don't come, I will see you all very soon. Please take good care of yourselves.